everyone, and welcome to the Clad Possible official YouTube channel. Today we will be taking up the daily newspaper analysis for the 27th of February 2023. So I'm sure some of you are giving your board examinations right now, and I'm sure they're going really well. I'm also aware that, while preparing for your boards, you may not have the time to go through the entire newspaper. Hence, it becomes exceptionally imperative for you to look at such videos. Take out around 20 odd minutes, it doesn't take more than that, to look into the articles. Possibly, I'm not asking you to learn them up right now, but you should be aware of what is happening around you. So today I have picked out 3 articles which are important for you from your CLAT examination and other law examination perspective. These are ranging from science and technology to hate speech, which was something that we had done day before yesterday also, but this is in another country. And the last one would be a legal term that is in news, and let's just try and understand what that term really means. So the very first one, like I said, is to do with science and technology. Now, what is happening? There is a telescope, all right, which is placed in Chile. This telescope is not like a very chota sa telescope. It has around 66 antennas. It is one of the largest space observatory, projects that are there right now. And what are we trying to do? We are not making it. It has already operationalized in 2013. We are just trying to upgrade it. Now, what does this particular telescope do? It basically gets very sharp images of stars of different galaxies, and through these sharp images, the astronomers, the scientists are able to make their own conclusion, and this is in furtherance of science and technology. So let's understand a little bit about it. What do we need to know about the telescope? Of course, we are not preparing for some of us might want to go to ISRO. I should not have preconceived notions, but right now we are preparing for law examination, so we will keep our discussion just constricted to that. So the very first thing is, what is ALMA? What is the full form? The full form is Atacama Large, right? So Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array. So you need to know the full form of this particular thing. Why Atacama? Atacama is the name of a desert which is in Chile, where this ALMA telescope is basically located, right? It is a radio telescope which comprises of 66 antennas. Located where? Located at the Atacama Desert, and hence it's called the Atacama Large Millimeter and Submillimeter. You look at the name and you already understand what they're talking about. So look at the minute details that it can get for the astronomers, so as to for them to make brilliant observations with respect to the space, right? So it is located at the Atacama Desert of northern Chile, and it can be moved across the desert from 16 to 150 kilometers. So it can move around also, so as to be able to get that precise, sharp image. What is happening right now? We are trying to get it a new brain. What is a new brain for a telescope? New software, new hardware. Is it going to happen right now? It is just been proposed. How long will it take? 5 years. Will it take a lot of money? Well, yes, a lot. How much? 37 million US dollars, right? And it will collect more data and sharper images, so that our astronomers and our scientists are able to make more advances in science and technology. Now, another thing that we need to understand is, what is the most significant modernization that will happen is the replacement of its correlator. Now, you have to understand, this is one of the fastest supercomputers that are there in this particular telescope, wherein whenever an antenna is basically getting any kind of an image, it is an astronomer is able to see that particular image in good detail. So a supercomputer which combines input from individual antennas and allows these astronomers to produce highly detailed image of this particular celestial object. Secondly, who operates this? Is it just the United States of America and Chile, or are there others? So 16 countries are operating it. United States of America is a part of it. 16 countries in Europe and Canada, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Chile, where it is located. So all of these countries are doing this together. since when has this become functional? So it has become functional back in 2013. Who has designed, planned, and constructed it? So it's not NASA. There are 3 observatories that have come together for the designing, planning, and construction of ALMA, which are US's National Radio Astronomy Observatory, National Astronomical Observatory of Japan, and the European Southern Observatory. So these are the 3, and you need to keep this in mind, right? It is the state-of-the-art telescope. बहुत ही बढ़िया telescope है ये, जो celestial bodies को millimeter और sub-millimeter wavelength पे भी देख रहा है. मतलब इतनी minute कोई ऐसे type की celestial body which is really far away, if no other radio telescope is able to get its image, this one will be able to, right? So they can penetrate through the dust clouds and help astronomers to examine even the dim and the distant galaxies and stars which are out there. It has extraordinary sensitivity which allows it to detect even extremely faint radio signals, which is why it is so popular amongst the astronomers, which is why so much money is being put in to make it even better. Now the question arrives that if, you know, Japan is a part of it, Taiwan is a part of it, United States of America is a part of this thing, then why isn't it located there? Why is it located in Chile? It's very simple. So if a telescope has to get the best possible image, especially a telescope that is looking into the sub-millimeter and the millimeter wavelength, it requires a very clear atmosphere, you know, because even the smallest amount of moisture can distort that particular image that it is trying to capture. So then where should we keep this telescope? We should keep it at the driest place in the world. And where is that place? That is the Atacama Desert, which is in Chile. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, we've already spoken about it. Let's look at the details. So this particular ALMA, the telescope, is situated at an altitude of 16,570 feet or 5050 meters. You can learn this, right, above sea level. So what is the name of the plateau? The name of the plateau is Chajnator Plateau in Chile's Atacama Desert. You have to learn the name of the plateau. You have already learned the name of the desert because that is a part of the name of the telescope itself. Millimeter and sub-millimeter waves are observed by it. They are very susceptible to atmospheric water vapor absorption, right? And this desert is the driest place in the world. Most of the nights over here are clear of clouds, and so hence it makes it completely perfect to capture those images with such clarity. Now, the next thing that we might be asked, you know, whatever is in the current, the static becomes important. If today there is a topic that I'm reading in the paper, the backward linkage is also very important. So what has this telescope done in the past that the scientists love it so much, right? So back in 2013, the year that it came into being, it started becoming operational. It discovered that the star-burst galaxies were there in the universe earlier than predicted. So what are these starburst galaxies? These are galaxies that have the capability of producing stars at an unusual pace. तो उसने starburst galaxy को डिस्कवर नहीं किया, उसने ये डिस्कवर किया कि भाई एल्मा से पहले सबको लगता था कि भाई starburst galaxies तो इस टाइम पे आई हैं. इसने बोला इस टाइम पे नहीं आई है, इससे पहले से थी. This is what is the discovery. The very next year in 2014, it looked into another galaxy, another constellation called Taurus, which is approximately 450 light years away from the Earth. इस particular constellation में it gave us detailed images of the protoplanetary disk surrounding the HL Tauri, a very young T Tauri star in this particular constellation. So whenever there is a young star, there are a lot of concentric circles of gas and, you know, many matters. This particular disk is called the protoplanetary disk. तो ये protoplanetary disk की detailed photo इसने हमें दे दी. कौन सा star था ये new वाला? It is called the HL Tauri. And which constellation are we talking about? We are talking about the constellation Taurus. And how many light years away is it from the Earth? 450 light years away. That's all that you have to know. The next one is 2015. In 2015, this telescope helped the scientists observe a phenomena which is also known as the Einstein ring. Now, what is the Einstein ring? So basically, when light is traveling in the galaxy or a star, it passes by a massive object en route to the Earth. what happens to that particular light, that is what is the Einstein ring. So imagine light traveling at a very fast pace and there's a massive object. What is the interrelation between the two? What happens to the light? That is called the Einstein ring. How could the scientists discover such a phenomena? Another feather in the hat of ALMA, the telescope. And very, very recently, in the year May 2022, for those who have been preparing in the past, or for those who've been reading the papers, or even looking at images that were trending in Twitter in the past year, there was an image of the black hole which was captured by the Hubble telescope, right? And a lot was said about it. Now you have to understand, so as to be able to achieve such a feat, a lot of telescopes must be working. In fact, there was an Event Horizon telescope project. This is what this telescope project was, and it consisted of a large amount of telescope array, right? It had a global network of radio telescopes, and one of those radio telescopes was ALMA, which finally was able to produce this very beautiful, very clear image of the black hole. When did that happen? That happened in 2022. So that is that about ALMA. Let's go on to the next one. Now, this particular case is the classic example of a man who has worked very hard, granted, possibly amazing at that person's job, at such a position that people are listening to him because he makes that kind of money and he has that kind of influence, but he misuses that influence and he makes an error in judgment, and he uses such terms wherein he is talking about two communities and he's trying to create a little bit of hatred between those communities. The communities in this case that we are talking about are the Caucasians, the whites, and the blacks, right? And this particular guy basically says that the whites should stay away from the blacks, and this is at no point in time in history was this statement ever correct, right? It was never correct to make such a statement, but especially now that people are so aware of their rights and people are so aware that at the end of the day we are human beings, and discriminating on the basis of color is just stupid, right? If a man who is of such a caliber makes such a statement, all of his feats just they get washed out. Nobody cares whether you made amazing cartoons. Nobody cares how much money do you have in your pocket. No one cares how much money are you making for us. You made that statement and you showed your mentality, and we have to take a step which it becomes an example to the society, and that is exactly what has happened over here. So sometimes CLAT also asks you about these infamous characters, right? And which is what this article is all about. What is the name of this guy? Scott Adams. You might have seen these cartoons, even if you don't know the name of this guy. ये कार्टून्स काफ़ी फेमस है. एनीवे नहीं भी पता तो डजंट मैटर, इनको डिल्बर्ट कार्टून बोलते हैं. बाकी तो मैंने आपको बता ही दिया है that he made these really stupid statements, horrendous statements, because of which he was dropped. And when did this comic strip start? It started back in 1989. Just look at the amount of goodwill that he must have created in the past, and it's gone just like that. Not just like that, it is because of his own actions, but imagine the influence that your words can have, right? So choose your words appropriately. Anyway, so the next one is the legal term that has been spoken about. Let's first understand what this legal term is, and then we will just understand what all we have to learn with respect to this article. So what we are talking about is a caveat. A caveat is basically a warning. अगर बिल्कुल करेक्ट ट्रांसलेशन करें तो वार्निंग बोलते हैं. इसका एक एग्जांपल लेते हैं. लेट्स से यू एंड आई आर नेबर्स. लेट्स से यू आर ट्राइंग टू बिल्ड समथिंग ऑन योर प्रॉपर्टी. And I start getting very hassled. I'm your neighbor. I'm like, listen, you're making this structure on your property, which is okay, but you're also extending this structure into my property, and I have a problem. And you know that I will end up going to the court, right? And before I even go to the court, or let's say I have filed the application, I'm in the process of filing the application, or you believe that an application will be filed, you go to the honorable court and you file a caveat, basically saying that if Priyanka comes tomorrow and she files an application saying XYZ, that her neighbor is making a structure on her property, kindly give me a notice beforehand. I will come, I will put in my point, and then you can proceed the way you want to proceed. That is basically why a caveat is used. But you see, sometimes, and I'm not really pointing fingers, sometimes, when we read a little bit of law, half knowledge is bad. Either it should be zero or it should be complete. Half knowledge is the worst thing that can ever happen. So a law student goes and files a caveat, and the Chief Justice of India basically, gives him a lesson, which I'm sure he's going to remember all his life. That listen, don't do these publicity gimmicks, and use these procedures only when they are supposed to be used, not just like that. So the CJI has reprimanded a student for filing a caveat in petition seeking menstrual leave. Okay, what is the name of that case where we are seeking menstrual leave? This is Shailendra Mani Tripathi versus Union of India and others. And you must have read about it that, these days there are a lot of articles with respect to menstrual leave, hona chahiye, nahi hona chahiye, and how the Chief Justice of India, in fact, the Honorable Supreme Court has told the central government that they are mere interpreters of law. Lawmakers is the legislature. And so the onus lies on the legislature whether they want to bring about such a law centrally. There are 2 states wherein menstrual leaves are granted, and there are just 2 states in India that do that. You will figure that out and you will write that in the comment section, which I know you won't, because I don't know why you don't. But the point is, please make a note of it. In case you can't find it, then you come and ask me. In fact, you should also know which is the first country in the world to provide menstrual leave. Coming back to this, there's a petition. You need to know the name of this particular case. As you know that, sometimes the name of the case is also asked, as in the ALET exam on 11th December 2022, Janhit Abhiyan versus Union of India was asked. So you should keep this in mind since it is in news. So he filed a caveat, and basically the Chief Justice of India schooled him, and he says, this is a publicity gimmick and I'm not going to take this up. You have no business here, is exactly what he said. Now, all we need to know, we know the meaning of a caveat. We just need to know certain details with respect to it. So warning or a caution. The guy or the person who filed such a caveat is called the caveator, right? And now the next thing is, when was it inserted? It was inserted by virtue of an amendment in 1976. This is not in the Constitution of India. This is in Civil Procedure Code. CPC में है ये. कौन सा section है? Section 148A. Section learn करना पड़ेगा, कर लो. ठीक है, just make a note of it. So section 148A 1976, but this doesn't define what's a caveat. It just basically tells you when can you file a caveat. How is it defined? Where is it defined? It's under a judicial precedent that was set by the Calcutta High Court. We'll just come down to that. So it says, when do you have the right to lodge a caveat? When an application is expected to be made. In our case, I just told you, so you think that I'm going to go to the court, or I've already made an application, or we are proceeding with a case has been instituted. So any person in that case is you, because you're making that structure and I have a problem with it, and you know that I will go to the court, or I have already gone to the court. So you are claiming a right to appear before the honorable court on the hearing of such an application. Yeah, so that is that. एक तो आप वहाँ पे जाके petition एक caveat file करेंगे, एक आप मेरे को भी notice दे देंगे कि I'm filing that caveat, okay? Now, the caveator or the person lodging is also required to serve a notice of the caveat by registered post, so that it actually comes to me, because I have to sign it, and so there's an evidence that I have sent it to her, right? That also needs to happen. The term caveat was defined by the Calcutta High Court in which year? 1978. Which year was the amendment made? 1976. After 2 years, there was a case. The case defined what's a caveat. And the name of the case is Nirmal Chandra Datta versus Girendra नारायण राव. सो 2 केसेस का नाम है, दोनों आप लर्न कर लेंगे. बाकी कैवेट का मतलब तो आपको पता चल ही गया है. इट्स अ कॉशन और अ वार्निंग गिविंग नोटिस टू द कोर्ट नॉट टू इशू एनी ग्रांट or take any step without notice being given to the party that is lodging the caveat, which in our example, which we took at the very beginning, is you. It is a precautionary measure taken against the grant of anything, of any kind of a relief, and that is what is a caveat. So that is all from my side for today. Yes, kindly go through this entire thing and make your notes, and all the best for your next examination for those who are giving the board exams, and for the rest of you, keep up the good work, keep studying, and I'll see you the next time. Thank you.